This is cool. I like this. Here we are again.
Yes.
Thank you, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to start off talking about CHIP. Can you tell us what CHIP is and why it's at risk right now?
Well, CHIP is the Children's Health Insurance Program, which was started on a bipartisan basis back in the late 90s. I worked with Democrats and Republicans in the Congress to pass a program that would provide health care to kids whose families didn't get health care through employers, but whose incomes were too high for Medicaid, but whose children had chronic conditions, congenital, traumatic conditions. And since then, 9 to 10 million kids a year have benefited from it. So it was first signed into law under the Clinton administration, reauthorized by President Bush, obviously reauthorized and supported by President Obama, and the Congress has failed to reauthorize it. So if the federal dollars are not continuing to come to the states have said they're going to have to start shutting the program down, and that will mean telling kids and their families, I'm sorry, we can't continue to help fund your health care. And Nico, I have met hundreds, maybe now by thousands, of families and kids who've been benefited by CHIP, and they've told me the most extraordinary, heartwarming stories about, you know, being born deaf and finally being able to afford a cochlear implant, having cancer, having their parents' insurance company hit the limit, and then being able to get help through CHIP, and so many others. So this is one of the really important healthcare programs that unfortunately is being dismantled by the administration and Congress, and it's tragic, and I hope everybody who sees this will speak out about it.
And this is urgent, right?
It is.
And what should people do to take action?
Part of the reason we defeated the Affordable Care Act repeal the first time was because people rose up and just called their representative or their senator, sent emails, sent letters, protested. Well, we need to do the same thing for CHIP, and we need to do the same thing against the tax policy that the Republicans are trying to push through. They're trying to remove the individual mandate for the Affordable Care Act, which would probably lead to 13, 14 million people now covered losing health care. They're going to have drastic cuts in Medicare and Medicaid. So the tax bill is once again a health care bill. And if people will really take it seriously to lobby and protest and speak out and use social media, everything you can against the tax bill and in favor of CHIP.
So I know that it must be disappointing to not be President of the United States, but I wonder if it gives you any solace that you are Fox News is President of the United States. How does that feel?
Well, at first it was somewhat surprising to see that Fox News on an almost daily basis was saying we need to do something about the Clinton administration.
What we should be focusing on are the continued lies of the Clinton administration.
And Hillary Clinton presidency.
What did President Clinton or President Clinton want to be?
I want to take this opportunity, sitting here with you, to announce that I am resigning from the Fox News presidency.
Wow.
I think that we should just leave that behind us. And whoever they want to blame for anything, they're going to have to find somebody else.
Okay. On a more serious topic, the president is pushing to have you prosecuted. This Uranium One story, reporter after reporter, fact-check organizations say it is a non-story. How do you respond to the latest news, and how does the media not make the same mistake as 2016 and cover a pseudo-scandal without amplifying it?
Well, I'm really glad you asked the second question, because it's not only that it's been debunked repeatedly by independent observers, journalists, experts of all kinds.
The accusation is predicated on the charge that Secretary Clinton approved the sale. She did not.
I just believe so strongly that that's not what a president and an attorney general should do. Because in so many countries, a political opponent is prosecuted, is exiled, maybe even executed. And that's not who we are as Americans. So this is not just about me. I know it's a big diversion. You know, they want to take attention off the Russian investigation because every day something comes out about it. But this is about degrading our justice system, about using the Department of Justice for political purposes. So if we get into this unfortunate abuse of power. I hope the press sees it for what it is and covers it the way it should be covered, as a breach of the duty of the people charged with enforcing and executing our laws, and a move away from us being a nation of laws toward a nation of men with political agendas.
You are deep into your book tour. I wonder, what was that like?
It was not only catharsis for me, it turns out it's catharsis for lots of people. They'll come and they'll say, you know, I'm here because my 96-year-old mother, you know, died last week, and she was so proud to vote for you, and I was, and I brought my daughter and her daughter. And sometimes people come through with their daughters dressed up like me, you know, in little pantsuits and things, and so I always try to take a picture with them. Lots of people are crying by the time they get there. I was in Montclair, New Jersey. This one young woman came up to me and she said, "I came here today to say thank you. I really had a very hard time in the last year or two in my life, and I didn't even think I wanted to keep living. But then I would see you and all of the stuff you were taking, and I thought to myself, you know, if she can do it, I can do it." And I just grabbed her hands. I mean, by then I had tears in my eyes and she had tears in her eyes. And I said, "Never quit on yourself. Never, ever quit." And she said, "Now I won't. I won't." A lot of what I hear is like that. Or, you know, a young man, you know, who came to a book signing who basically said, "You gave me the courage to have a conversation with my parents about my being gay." I said, "Well, how'd it go?" And he said, "It went okay." I've gotten so much out of my travels the last couple of months, and I've tried to give as much back as I could, because I have a great deal of gratitude to the people who supported me and who care about the values that I've been fighting for my whole life.
I'd love to talk about foreign policy a bit. You worked extensively on reorienting U.S. foreign policy towards Asia. The president just returned from his trip. How did you assess his trip?
I thought it was a lost opportunity. I don't think he accomplished anything.
Nothing?
Nothing. No, because I think we have retreated from any kind of competing strategic goal. And what I think was happening with China is that there were a few kind of throwaway trade deals, or continuing to provide copyright and trademark protection for Trump branded goods and places. The other problem was his lack of understanding that we have strategic goals, economic goals, and value goals. And when the United States doesn't stand up and speak out on behalf of human rights, that is an open invitation to every dictator and authoritarian in the world. And he went to the Philippines, and you know, there's a lot of concern about extrajudicial killings ordered by the president there, and he could care less. He said nothing. And I just think that when you look at our goals and what will continue to make us strong and continue to give us leverage in dealing with the rest of the world, particularly in Asia, with a rising China, it was pretty much a failure.
Roy Moore's story has come up, and in the wake of that, a lot of women have been posting to social media using this hashtag #WhenIWas14, and I wonder, what was Hillary Rodham up to at age 14?
I was the president of a very small Fabian fan club, and probably nobody watching this has ever heard of him, but he was big with us. It is so important that we recognize you know, neither 14-year-old girls or boys are adults. And I think that people need to recognize that we've got to do more to really support kids, particularly adolescents, as they deal with everything in society now.
A few questions about politics. Are there some young leaders in the Democratic Party? Can you name some that are making you hopeful about the party?
Well, yes, and some of them were elected in Virginia just a few days ago, and in other places across the country. I started this new group called Onward Together, and we are funding groups that are young people who are recruiting candidates and vetting them and running their campaigns and helping them be the best candidates they can be. So groups like Run for Something and Emerge America, I see a lot of energy, and I'm urging people who have the stomach for it and the desire to do it to think about running for office. Young men, young women. I'm particularly keen on young women, obviously.
Is there any strategic thoughts you've had about people running in 18 or people running in 20?
Well, the first thing I would say is I'm not at all thinking about 2020, and I hope nobody else is either. If somebody comes to talk to you about 2020, tell them you'll talk to them after 2018, because if we can win in 2018, everything changes. We will be able to hold this administration accountable.
It's sort of remarkable how often you hear, what is the Democratic message? Do you have your own conception for the, here's what it is to all those people who somehow haven't picked it up?
Yeah, economic justice and civil rights. I mean, and you can't have one without the other. There was a phony debate after the election, like, only talk about economics and forget so-called identity politics. That is dead wrong. You need to have a political message that says, we're not leaving anybody out, we're going to have an inclusive economy that works for everybody, and we're going to make sure that people get the basic needs met: healthcare, education, affordable, quality on both counts. We want to make sure that people are given the respect that they deserve as our fellow human beings. You've got to keep both halves together. I mean, Democrats, we fight for people's health care and their jobs, and we try to stand up for people's civil rights, human rights, women's rights, gay rights, everything, because we know that if we have a broad-based political system that includes people and makes people feel welcome, then we've got more chance to actually win going forward.
So I guess last question. People joke about Earth 2, where you are president. I was hoping to do a little lightning round, ticking through some issues where President Trump has taken action and what you might be doing on Earth 2 and at the end of the first year.
We may have just found it.
I know.
We may have just found it.
I felt a ripple in
the time.
Let's start with North Korea.
Full-on diplomatic pressure and sending diplomats who actually know the language, know the history, know the culture.
What would be happening on gun safety?
We would be putting as much money as it took into enforcing the laws we already have. And then I would be pushing for universal background checks that would include gun shows.
On the opioid crisis.
First of all, we have to save lives when there are overdoses, and that's something the Clinton Foundation has led the way on in getting naloxone into colleges and high schools and emergency responders. But once you save the life, how are you going to get that person the treatment and the support that he or she needs? So I would be actually putting in place a real plan, working with local communities to address what is a really serious epidemic.
Nico, I fear we have to end it here.
Okay.
You want one more? I'll be short. One more. Because
Russia.
I like being on Earth too.
Russia.
We've got to get to the bottom of what happened in 2016. If I had been president, or on Earth 2 where I am, I would have an independent commission with subpoena power, because if we don't get to the bottom of it, it's going to keep happening. This is an ongoing threat. I worry about 18. I worry about 2020, because this is the first time we've ever been attacked and not imposed any real consequences on our adversary.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks.
And
Thanks.
yeah, thank you.
Let's go to Earth 2. Thanks, Nico.
Bye.